The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. These guys can't go about like 3 seconds without saying a swear, so, listener discretion is advised.
Blood is fuel for my cock.
Oh my god.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, your weekly home for animation reviews and discussions.
Hey there, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, now part of the Geekly Grind podcast network. My name is Matt. That is my co-host, Kyle.
Yo.
Our compadre, JD, isn't going to be able to join us for this episode, but making his return to the podcast once again this year, our friend Aiden.
Hey, I'm back.
Hey, it's Aiden. So, for its 20th anniversary, we are covering on this episode the movie Monkeybone. It's directed by Henry Selick, who is mostly well-known, or maybe not well-known, for Nightmare Before Christmas, because usually when that gets brought up in conversation, people seem to think that it was directed by Tim Burton, even though it was not. Produced and written and everything, and based on his designs, but directed by Henry Selick. A lot of people don't know that. Also
James
did James and the Giant Peach, Coraline, and then this movie. So he's only really got like these 4 movies to his director's credit. But I mean, he had been in the industry for quite a while before he got to direct Nightmare. Like, he worked as an animator and in-betweener and a storyboard artist, among some other roles, on a bunch of movies, like just to name a handful. He worked on Tron, Brave Little Toaster, Return to Oz, Fox and the Hound, Black Cauldron, Great Mouse Detective, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So, pretty impressive resume. I can see why, he eventually was able to, commandeer his own films. You may have noticed I only mentioned 4 directorial credits because, between he did Nightmare in 1993, James and the Giant Peach in 1996, and then Monkeybone in 2001, and then he wouldn't have another movie out until Coraline in 2009. So a bit of a gap in time there because, of course, I think when Monkeybone gets brought up in conversation a lot, it's mostly about, that movie, it was a box office bomb. Like, it did terribly. Which, after having watched it again, I can see why this wouldn't jive with, like, a normal, movie-going audience. It's a fucking strange movie.
This is a little too weird for like a mainstream like movie-going audience. It does not surprise me at all that it did not make its money back. Because this is like a movie that almost borders on being art house.
Yeah. What makes me sad, they definitely don't make movies like this anymore, and I can kind of see why. Probably expensive.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, I think, what was it? The figure that I saw for the budget was something, it was $75 million, and then for box office returns, they got like about $7.5 million, so yikes. Pretty bad.
Just a bomb, it was a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, and then, of course, as far as reviews went too, got, not so favorable reviews back in its day. I feel like, nowadays it's definitely it's one of those movies that has developed its, cult following. Like, it's a unique ass film. Like, there's, like, Kyle, like you said, they don't make movies like this anymore. Like, this is like just it's something else.
I can confidently say I've never seen a movie like this before. Just with the way that it melds all these different like style, like the way that it first of all, the whole just like the visual aesthetic coupled with all of the like fucking live action combined with the stop motion, that's all great and stuff. But like combine that with just the weirdest fuck story that this movie has and plot. It's just like, yeah.
It had a lot of CG in it too. So it's every medium.
Like, it had a lot of CG, but it also had like an equal hand amount of like practical effects. And there were a lot of instances watching where I was like, is that CG or is that practical effects?
Yeah,
like,
it's really hard to tell.
The bull guy was definitely like a CG head on a actor body.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Totally. Yeah, no, this movie is just chock full. Like it's an amalgam of a bunch of different mediums. You've got, the basis of it being live action, but then you've got your stop motion, you've got your actual traditional animation, you've got your animatronics, you've got your puppetry, you've got your people in suits. It's just like this big, just smorgasbord of like different mediums all seen together, and it's a treat for the eyes for sure.
I want to be a fly in the room when they were discussing the props for this movie, because I want to be I want to be the fly in the room when they were like, okay, one of the props we're going to need multiple versions of Whoopi Goldberg's head.
Yeah. No, that's fucking and the cast in this movie is definitely something else too, because if you're just sort of looking back, like, at everyone that ended up in this movie and like where they're at now, like, I mean,
like it was Brendan Fraser in his heyday. This was like right off fucking the Mummy series.
Yeah.
And Chris Katan was popular. He was doing like Night at the Roxbury and SNL stuff and just a bunch of different bullshit comedy movies that nobody remembers. But he was pretty good.
Hey, Corky Romano is a classic.
I was trying to remember what that was called.
Well, see, and that's a little connection that I have here too, because I feel like the last time that I saw Monkeybone might have been, I'm almost certain it was on Comedy Central. And another thing they used to show on Comedy Central a lot was Corky Romano, so I'm very familiar with that movie because they played the shit out of that one. But yeah, so we mentioned a bit of the story, but Kyle, because you knew more about this than I did, but if you wanted to kind of talk about Darktown for a little bit.
I don't know anything about Darktown, honestly.
Oh, okay. Well, Kyle brought this to my attention before I actually read up onto it, but Monkeybone is based on a comic, not a series, a comic called Darktown that was, I guess, supposed to be like a full miniseries, but ended up only putting out like the one issue.
Yeah.
And it's based on it in certain respect, but they definitely changed a lot for the movie, and I believe that was not Henry Selick's intention when he wanted to adapt it. I think that was just a lot of like suits at Fox, just changing shit for the sake of trying to make it more palatable for the general populace and stuff. Which even then, I guess they did a pretty bad job of, because it's still a strange ass movie.
Well, it's just weird to me because it becomes so fucking meta in a sense, because this is someone's idea that they were like, yeah, let's do a movie. And then you have the movie where the guy has his own thing and they want to, market it and all this kind of shit. To me, it's a little meta in a sense.
Yeah, no, I think anytime like a movie or like a show does anything with like, or specifically like an animated thing, like where the creator is also like in the industry. So like the basis in this story is that Brendan Fraser's character, Stu Miley, and the reason why they named him that was so that his fucking name tag on his shirt reads Smiley. Like, yeah, so he's like a cartoonist, and the basis for this movie is that he made a pilot for a show based around his character Monkeybone, and I guess it got bought up. They don't say specifically Fox, but we were remarking that in the beginning of the movie there's like in the place where they're showing the pilot at, there's a bunch of framed cells of like The Simpsons and King of the Hill and stuff on the wall, so it's probably Fox.
And that was his first mistake, and that was getting his show pitched to Fox.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he ended up with 6 episodes though.
Yeah, only 6 episodes.
This kind of shit.
It's better than nothing. I mean,
oh, that's true.
But it's also funny because I'm just thinking like, yeah, you know what? That honestly makes sense. And you kind of look at like I could see it was either being picked up by Fox or being picked up by like Monkeybone would have absolutely been a thing that you would have seen like on mid '90s like MTV along with like Liquid Television or like Beavis and Butthead, that sort of thing.
This is gonna sound weird, but I could definitely have seen Monkeybone being a show that aired late nights on USA, like prime time, right next to like Duckman or some shit.
Yeah, no, that's another fit too.
That's the weird thing, though, is they made a bunch of internet shorts, and it's pretty much that cartoon. Have you guys seen those?
No,
I don't believe so. I know that there's a full version of the cartoon that we see at the beginning of this movie that we don't see in the movie. I believe that's like on the I know there's like a bunch of deleted scenes and stuff like on the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, so I think it's on there. I wasn't able to find it on YouTube. I was trying to look up to see like deleted scenes and stuff, or like I even heard this movie had like an alternate ending, but like I couldn't find any of it on YouTube, so I guess I'll just have to buy the Blu-ray because I watched this on HBO Max, so which is where get your subscription to HBO Max to watch specifically Monkeybone and nothing else.
This is not sponsored by HBO Max. We're just giving you advice.
Yeah, they did like a whole series of internet cartoons when people were experimenting with that. Like the Critic had a bunch of internet shorts that nobody knows about, and
I remember the Critic.
The Critic ones.
Yeah,
like John Kay with internet cartoons and shit.
Don't remind me of the John Kay ones.
Oh,
God.
Yeah,
no, I didn't know. I didn't know that there was ones for Monkeybone. They didn't. I was trying to read up on any like sort of like trivia or like production stuff, and I didn't hear any mention of that.
I swear they were trying to make it into a franchise series.
Well, good job.
They tried.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie is a trip. Even though it's not necessary because so we mentioned that it was based on Darktown, and it just takes sort of like I guess broad strokes, but not even necessarily broad strokes. It's more like I think the concept of a cartoonist and its creation and having his body taken over by it is pretty much like what was lifted from it. Because other than that, from what I was able to find out, I think the original comic was like in like the sort of underworld place he ends up in. It's mostly like puppets and marionettes and stuff. Then I think the plot of like the creation, like taking over the creator's body, and like I think it was to be like a chaos agent on Earth or something. Like I don't think it was necessarily to make like nightmares or anything. So that's kind of like where it diverges. Like I said, I would love to know more about the comic, but it was kind of hard to find out information on it since it was like a creator-owned thing, and I don't think it's gotten like a reissue or anything. So Kyle was just talking about he found a issue of it like on eBay and try to get. So who knows? Maybe we'll post about it on the Twitter or Facebook or something if you're able to end up with a copy.
Usually, money's no object when shit like that happens. So I'm definitely going to try to win it.
But yeah, so. Before we talk about sort of the movie proper, I did want to like mention just a couple of other like little production things because I thought it was interesting. There, as far as like who I was seeing for who was originally considered for roles in this movie, apparently when it was closer to Darktown, the actors that were being considered for the roles of Stu and Death were Nick Cage and Christopher Walken, respectively.
Oof,
and then
that would have been different.
Wow.
It would have been different as hell, but I would have been all for it. And then apparently Monkeybone was supposed to be voiced by Ben Stiller, but I guess there was scheduling conflicts with Mystery Men, which is another great movie. Definitely check that one out. I can wholeheartedly recommend Mystery Men.
If I'd rather have Ben Stiller and Mystery Men or Monkeybone, I'm glad he chose Mystery Men.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's another comic-based movie based on Flaming Carrot.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something that gets because I think in Mystery Men they outright like it was a Greg Kinnear's character is just supposed to be the Flaming Carrot, right?
I think so. I have to watch that movie again.
Yeah. Well,
I also want to bring up one little quick bit about not production, but like the aftermath.
Yeah.
But what Brendan Fraiser did an interview with the AV Club, and he was asked about it. And I'm going to quote him here. "I don't know what happened. They gave the keys to the inmates at the asylum. We went nutty and we made a movie. The studio saw it and went, huh? We have the dubious honor of being in the world's most expensive art house film ever created." And I can't even argue against that, to be honest.
No, I mean, you saw the movie, so you know for sure. I was reading... I couldn't find any other proof of this, but Rose McGowan's in this movie. She plays like a side character called Miss Kitty, and she claims that Henry Selick was fired halfway through the making of the film, but I couldn't find any other sources to back that up. Like, I don't know if maybe she was just under the impression that, something happened and that changed the movie from what's original intended sort of, product was, but... Yeah, I couldn't find any other sort of source backing up the claim that he was fired halfway through, so I don't know how true that is.
I don't remember seeing another director credited in the movie, so I'm gonna say that that's probably not true.
Yeah,
But
or maybe he's just misinformed or something.
yeah, probably just a little misinformation.
Yeah. But then also, yeah, just speaking on the actors, like I mentioned, there's a bunch of people here that, like when you kind of look at it now, it's kind of like a neat little smorgasbord. Like, we already mentioned Brendan Fraser, you got Chris Katan, Rose McGowan, Giancarlo Esposito's in this movie of, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul fame. It's Gus Fring. He plays Hypnos as like, a half goat man, and he's great in that. There's a Whoopi Goldberg as Death. That one we mentioned a little bit earlier. She's great in that. Thomas Hayden Church is like her underling, except he goes uncredited, which I thought was pretty funny. He's like, I know him mostly as Sandman in Spider-Man 3, but I know he's like he's like the president of Brondo, like an Idiocracy, and like he was in Sideways with Paul Giamatti, I think, if I remember right.
Admittedly, I couldn't have recognized him underneath all that makeup and suit, but like, it's good to know that he went on to do better things.
Yeah.
I looked up the voice of Monkeybone, and it's the guy who played Jesus in Big Lebowski.
Oh yeah, it's John Turturro. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's great. He does a great job here. But I especially wanted to just talk about specifically Brendan Fraser and Chris Katan, because they both do some amazing physical acting in this movie, especially Chris Katan, who was like really well known for that sort of thing, like on SNL, like playing like what was it, named Peanut, or if I remember right, yeah, it's Peanut or Mongo, like the Monkey Man or whatever, and like just yeah, Brendan Fraser gets like a lot of good physical stuff once Monkeybone sort of like possessed his body, and he's able to like switch the character like like really quickly too. Like he's playing like his mild mannered Stu self, and then like once he gets turned into Monkeybone, he's like playing a completely different character. He's like got some really good range. I don't think fucking people realize that Brendan Fraser's like an understated Hollywood treasure. Like we mentioned the Mummy movies. He's great in those.
Everybody loves him back in action.
Yeah, he was back in action. There's a movie called Blast from the Past that I enjoy with him in it, where we brought him up. Christopher Walken plays his dad in that movie. Encino Man, which is like his first big credit, if I remember right, where he's playing like a caveman thought out like in mid-90s California. That's a great one.
Yeah.
George of the Jungle, great in that.
Oh fuck! Dudley Do-Right.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Dudley Do-Right until we were watching Monkeybone, was looking at some of his credits. Yeah, it's just one of those things where like he kind of dropped off the radar for a while, but
he had some rough life, man. I don't know if you know that.
No, I do, and I don't want to go too into it here, but it's really great to see him kind of in a bit of a resurgence right now. Like I know he's doing like some great stuff on Doom Patrol right now. I've been meaning to check that out. I've heard his performance on that's great. I know he's
Is that even still going?
Doom Patrol, as far as I know, yeah. I think it was just one of those things where a lot of the DC productions on DC Universe got moved to HBO Max. So I think they're just in the midst of like producing stuff right now.
Okay.
I know that's at least like 2 seasons, but I've heard it's great, and I've heard he's great. And then he's done some other shows like around this that same time too. So the other thing too is I wanted to mention specifically related to Chris Katan, and I didn't want to mention this to Aiden while we were watching because I wanted to get his live reaction to it along with you, because it's really unfortunate. With Chris Katan, I was wondering like, I hadn't really thought about him like in a while. I was like, what has he been up to? I looked him up on YouTube and I saw one of the first results is coming up with an article where he was like promoting a book of his where he's talking about how on SNL he broke his neck doing a sketch.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah, well, and then you take that into consideration about his character in this movie.
That's just unfortunate.
So
yeah, I remember hearing something about that, but I may have logged that back in my memory bank.
So yeah, for anyone that does not know, basically Chris Katan's role in this movie shows up with like in the last 30 minutes. Stu, so Monkeybone is taking over Stu's body. So Stu pleads with death, and he's able to get like an hour on Earth. But he has to use a corpse's body, and the corpse is played by Chris Katan, and the corpse or the person died from a broken neck, and only to find out that Chris Katan actually broke his neck like 3 months after Monkeybone came out, which is
that's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate as fuck. Like,
well, you do know what he's been up to, though, right?
I know he was like on Dancing with the Stars recently.
He did Banicula's voice.
Right.
What?
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I read that. I totally forgot to put that in my notes. Yeah, that was something he's been recently doing as well.
I remember hearing that a while back and going, "What the fuck?" But I guess, I mean, it's not really that strenuous. You're just doing noises.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good to hear that he's been able to recover. At least seemingly, like, for the most part. So it's good to know that it hasn't had like a total impact on his life aside from that. Yeah. So as far as the movie itself, I mean, we've kind of went over like kind of the contents of it and sort of the broad strokes of the plot. But I mean, I don't know. Like, how did you guys feel like just in general about the film?
I fucking love that movie.
I had a lot of fun with it. It was definitely like, I've seen a lot of really weird movies. I love finding just weird avant-garde shit, and this definitely like hit that same kind of itch. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites, but it was definitely like a fun time, and I'd be willing to watch it again.
Yeah.
And mostly for that, like, because this has probably my favorite interpretation of not really an afterlife so much as it's like like a limbo land kind of deal,
kind of like a purgatory of sorts.
Yeah, it's like a purgatory where everybody there is like waiting for death to come up and be like, "All right, it's time for you to go." And it's just it's super fascinating. I love like when movies or like creative people take their own interpretations of an afterlife that isn't just the stock heaven or hell, and like just play around with the whole idea.
Yeah, like I think when we were watching it, you had mentioned like Beetlejuice, and I was thinking about it. I was like, yeah, it does kind of share like a lot of that same sort of plot, like an aesthetic with Beetlejuice. Because again, like Henry Selick stuff kind of gets mistaken for Tim Burton stuff a lot, but there's like there's definitely some similarities there because they're cut kind of like from the same cloth. They both like were working for Disney around the same time. That was how their working relationship came about for Nightmare. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that you see here as far as aesthetic and stuff goes, like, it's very much in line with that sort of like spooky macabre, like, but also very colorful, very vibrant. And of course in this specific movie, like this sort of pop surrealist, like, a visual eye candy, like it's just, like I've already mentioned, it's just it's really fun to look at. Like about half of this movie, maybe a little bit less than half, but takes place like in they don't call it dark. Oh, they call it downtown in this movie. They don't call it Darktown. Yeah. But yeah, all that stuff's just like great. Apparently, like Henry Selick really wanted to try to keep. I don't think he originally wanted to use live action elements at all. I think he wanted to keep it all like animation or all the sort of or like the combination of all the different mediums and stuff. But I think, like mentioned, I think Fox, because they had like the name actors under the belt, they wanted to force kind of the live action stuff on them.
And for what it's worth, I think the live action blending with the animation and whatnot, actually, I think it works pretty well. Like, especially when they're in the downtown area, like it looks super seamless. Like, you don't really see any of the situations where, like, oh, it's very clear that, like, he's talking to something fake. Like, Brendan Fraiser isn't actually talking to a monkey. But, like, nah, while they're in the downtown, it looks super nice. They did a great job with it.
Yeah, no, they composited everything really well during those segments.
That's just, like, one of my favorite things is it makes it really unique. It's not like any other movie when you have, a mix just like that. But
Yeah, because typically with movies like this where they combine live action with animation stuff, it's mostly traditional animation, like your Roger Rabbits, or I forgot to mention earlier, but this movie kind of shares like some stuff with like Cool World.
I definitely got like real Cool World vibes from it.
Yeah, so Cool World from 1993. We should talk about, or not 1993. I don't know the year. We should cover that.
Y'all should cover Cool World sometime.
That'll definitely be something we have to cover in the future. But yeah, typically you don't see like a lot of compositing of like or interactions between live action and stop motion. So that's sort of that, seeing that in between is very fun to see them kind of work.
I just love stuff like this where the world is almost a character of itself, where you want to explore that area yourself because it's interesting.
I would have loved if back in the day if they had like a point and click game based on Monkeybone, where like you're going around, kind of like they did one with Christopher Lloyd, kind of. I can't remember the name of it. It was like Tune.
I think it was
Toonstruck or something.
Toonstruck.
Yeah, I know it's a Stay Tuned. Yeah, that's a different thing. But yeah, if they would have done some of that for fucking Monkeybone, or had like some just like subpar like PS1 game where you're just able to like tool around in like downtown and stuff, I would have loved that shit. I would have ate that up.
I could definitely see that working. I don't know why my brain automatically is like that. I could see that being kind of like a Dark Seed, except instead of it being like H.R. Geiger alien nightmare stuff, it's just the fucking downtown where it's just like Henry Selick nightmare bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking sometimes Universal, when something does really well, like The Grinch or something, they usually have like set pieces where you can walk around. Something like that would have been fucking awesome. This movie done really well.
They should have done. They should do this fucking when you're able. Universal, fucking. I know you're listening. When you're fucking open back up and you're doing like your mazes for like Halloween, do a fucking Monkeybone maze. That shit would be amazing.
Oh hell yeah!
That would be pretty cool.
I would love that. And they've done those those mazes for movies that are like not like cult classic type shit. So like this would just fit right in. Like I would love to do that. Yeah, so there's some specific stuff that I wanted to mention, so I just wrote down kind of like in my notes here. There's that first shot where you see like Stu actually like going to the underground. It's because when he's fallen into the coma after getting in the car crash, and he's just sitting on the gurney, and like his body just starts sinking through the gurney, and it leaves like a hole shaped like him, and like he's just falling into the underground. Like I think that's a really cool introduction to sort of the fantastical element of the film.
Oh, I love it.
And it seemed like it was all practical effects too. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Didn't seem CG to me.
Yeah, no, it looked pretty seamless. The idea that because they kind of go in the film, like I said, we're not going through like every single plot detail or anything in here because I want you guys to go out there and watch the movie for yourself. Like I mentioned, it's on HBO Max. Fucking go watch it. There's the mention that before he meets his soon-to-be wife, he is kind of like having nightmares and stuff, and his art style is very sort of like pop surrealist. There's a very specific artist that I saw mentioned in the notes. It was Mark Ryden, whose work when I looked him up on Google, like I actually did recognize. Like he does a lot of that sort of like big-headed children, like with the big eyes, like with like just the weird like animals and stuff. Like I'm sure you guys have seen this stuff on the internet at one point or another.
Yeah,
it's interesting stuff. And I, from what I was able to tell, he actually did the painting in this movie of Stu like lying on the hospital bed as like a yam with like the doctor and
yeah.
like, on everything.
I gotta talk about that because that's like probably my favorite scene in the whole film. So like throughout the whole film, like in the beginning, you see like this painting that Stu made, or like a sketch that Stu made of his nightmare, and like later in the film, as he's trying to escape from death, like he enters that painting and relives that nightmare, and it's one of the fucking weirdest and scariest looking scenes I've ever seen, and I love it.
Because it's interesting to see like a recreation of that painting done in a physical space. Like, of course they're compositing a bunch of visual effects on top of it, but it's one of those things where it's always cool to see like a reinterpretation of something like that.
God, yeah,
they did a really cool job with that. This movie is punctuated with a bunch of nightmare sequences like that, and I think I did mention it before, but the whole sort of point of this movie is that, or no, because I mentioned the original comics sort of version of it, but the movie version of it is Hypnos is talking about how nightmares are basically the entertainment in downtown, so they want more nightmares. So he's sending Monkeybone up on the surface to, because Stu's fiance found the chemical solution to create nightmares. That was actually how he kind of gets aroused out of downtown. Is that she just pumps him so full of nightmare juice.
Aroused.
Well, I mean, the whole point of Monkeybone is that he's basically a metaphor for arousal, right? Because that very beginning cartoon where he's talking about Stu's talking about how he gets fucking turned on by his like old teacher's like arm fat, and like he's trying to hide his boner, and it turns out it's like Monkeybone, like actually.
Yeah,
God.
So,
that's all that fucking Monkeybone is just sort of like a metaphor for like being horny, I guess.
It's a metaphor for liking bingo wings.
Well, I mean, that too, I guess. But yeah, there's this whole thing about like nightmares and dreams and stuff, and it's just they're basically just trying to create more entertainment for the denizens of downtown, and it's not necessarily like a very detailed plot or anything. It's just one of those things where the plot's very, I don't want to say simple, but it's bolstered by everything, by the execution of it.
Yeah. I think just the very idea that there's a scene where a monkey steals a vial of nightmare juice is enough to say that, yeah, the plot's worth watching.
Yeah, Brendan Fraiser almost gets down with that monkey.
Brendan Fraser kisses a monkey to steal its nightmare juice and then shoves it in a bunch of stuff. I don't know if I should keep going with the plot. I almost want to just save most of the plot stuff for people who are interested in the film, because honestly, this is worth just watching.
Yeah.
This is definitely just worth watching the film for, because man, I didn't know where the movie was going at any point during it, and it kept surprising me, and I loved every second of it. It's just it really is just they gave the dudes at the insane asylum the keys to the studio, and they went nuts and made a movie.
Yeah.
The scene that made me laugh the most was where Monkeybone's watching the monkeys having sex.
Oh, he's
yeah,
kind of like a knowing nod, like, huh, yeah, okay, I understand. Like he's gonna,
His wife comes in, is like, "What you watching?" He's like, "Oh, nothing." It was just his reaction to it was so funny.
Oh yeah, because he's fumbling with the remote, and then he ends up kicking the TV off button,
Yeah,
that whole scene, because that scene leads into a would-be sex scene between the two, and that whole bit where he's sort of doing it's not like a striptease, but he's doing a sexy dance to a Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix, and it just gave me flashbacks to Wayne's World. There's a scene in there where one of the characters, Garth, is having a daydream about a crush he has from the donut shop, and is playing that song, and he's doing this sort of mating dance at her. And the one in this movie is definitely a lot more involved, but it still reminded me of that. Speaking of songs paired with scenes in this movie that made me think of something else, I wanted to make specific notice about this because there's a scene in this movie where Stu and Monkeybone go to Hypnos's sort of abode. They're invited to a party. And the intro to that, they are looking down at a dance floor, and they're playing a song called Toll of the Bell, and it's just showing this crowd of people dancing. And that instantly reminded me of the Super Mario Brothers movie. There's a scene in that movie where Mario and Luigi go to a club, and it's playing that same exact song. It's playing the original version of that song, and it's showing like on the dance floor and like a bunch of people dancing and stuff. So I gotta think that there is some inspiration from the Super Mario Brothers live action film here in this movie.
Well,
fine by me.
I had the same fucking vibe, but it was a different thing. It was where they infiltrate Death's area, and all the Grim Reapers in the white costumes walking around. They're like shuffling around like the Goombas in that movie.
Yeah,
and I got Mario Brothers vibes from that.
And that's completely fine by me because I think I've definitely mentioned on this show before, but I love that movie. And there's nothing really animated in that movie per se, but I'll find a reason to cover that movie on the show someday.
We should have. It's Mario's 35th anniversary.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Maybe for my birthday. I make sure to watch that movie every year for my birthday, at the very least.
There you go. Now you got to choose between Angela Anaconda or Mario.
Oh, God. Between something I sincerely love and something that I want to torture JD with. That's kind of a hard shuffle.
The Torment of Your Friends or one of your favorite movies?
Hard to say.
That's a tough call.
We'll have to...
He flat out said he won't watch it, though.
Coward.
Yeah.
There's also two other things I know that I thought were really funny. There's a scene in this movie where Stu was thrown in jail, and that's after Monkeybone's taken over his body, and he's just sort of laying in jail, and like a bunch of like the discarded sort of concessions from like downtown get like thrown on him, like from the trash of like, popcorns and hot dogs and stuff. And then like a bunch of these like other inmates like slide into the area and like pick at all the food that is coming around them. And it's revealed that all these characters are like well-known historical figures. There you've got like Attila the Hun, you've got Typhoid Mary, you've got Lizzie Borden, Edgar Allan Poe, Rasputin, and Stephen King, who I read was originally supposed to be an actual cameo from the author, but apparently didn't show up to the set that day, so they just got an impersonator, which is very funny. But the other thing that we found out about, because when me and Aiden were watching this and we saw through the credits, Edgar Allan Poe, his actor is Edgar Allan Poe the Fourth.
Shit.
Yeah.
So apparently,
I don't know if that's...
Apparently, Edgar Allan Poe's like descendant is going around playing him in like movies and TV shows, like, and I think that's incredible. Like,
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, probably.
I can just picture like the casting room right now. Like, okay, you're going to be playing for the role of Edgar Allan Poe. Please state your name. Yeah, I'm Edgar Allan Poe the Fourth. Well, shit, that's all you need to say. You're hired.
Yeah. But yeah, there's just I don't want to talk about every single thing just because, yeah, like Aiden mentioned, we should definitely leave some stuff there for people to kind of watch this movie and discover for themselves. But rest assured, its movie is absolutely worth watching. Especially if you're a fan of all this different types of animation, because it's very cool to see it just all brought together here. Even though it's only about like half the movie, like I feel like the rest of the movie is still very fun. Like I said, Brendan Fraiser gives like an amazing performance here. Chris Katan's great for the little amounts of the movie that he's in. Yeah, I mean, was there anything else specifically that you guys wanted to mention?
No, that's it, bro.
That cat girl was kind of cute. That's all I got. Literally halfway into the movie, I just stopped writing notes for it because I had really no other way to describe what I was watching.
Well, then that's a good enough endorsement as any. This movie it just invokes so many feelings in you that when you watch it, you can't help but stay with your eyes glued to the screen. So yeah, definitely that's a high recommendation for us from this movie. It's its 20th anniversary. Definitely check it out. Like I mentioned, I watched it on HBO Max. There's Blu-rays and DVDs out there for it. I'm really excited because, like I said, Henry Selick's only got like these 4 films to his credit, but he we mentioned in our preview episode at the beginning of the year, but he's supposed to have a film on Netflix either late this year or early next year called Wendell and Wild that he's doing with Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key. And it's going to be nice to see him in the director's chair again, because every time he's had a movie to himself, I feel like he's done a really good job. So aside from that, we might be covering something else of his later in this year. I believe James and the Giant Peach is also celebrating an anniversary this year, so we'll definitely be sure to cover that if we're able to. Yeah, so definitely go check out Monkeybone, guys. It is worth the watch. So that's going to be it for us here at the Ink and Pain Club podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We are on all your major streaming services. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're also on YouTube. If you're listening to us on there, if you could leave us a like or a comment or hit the subscribe button or the notification bell or whatever the hell the YouTubers out there say nowadays. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. We send out updates for new episodes on there. For this and other podcasts. We also have a Discord. Always fun discussion happening in there. You can leave us suggestions for future episodes. You can talk about current or past episodes there. All the relevant links for all that stuff will be wherever you're listening to us now. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to keep up with the show. You can also jump in our Discord to keep up with the conversation. The Ink and Pain Club podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Links, as always, are in the description. We'll see you next time.